Okay, I just watched a video on fine tuning, and of course, when they refer to fine tuning, they're talking about very, very precise measurements of, you know, the quarks and protons and everything, all kind of, leptons or whatever they are. But anyways, people can get lost in that conversation, not really understand what they're talking about, and but even scientists themselves will admit that if there was an expansion, it had to be just right. It had to expand at this perfect rate, and it had to slow down at this perfect rate, and it has to keep on going. And of course, they're back engineering, as it were, what they think happened anyway. But there's all this fine tuning stuff, and you know, is we kind of like have to take it on, on their word as to it's if something was off, this amount, just a little bit, if there was an extra dime in the universe, it would throw everything all to pieces because of how perfectly balanced it has to be and all that. It's kind of hard for us to understand sometimes. A lot of people, and of course, there's people like Leonard Susskind that say it doesn't have to be fine tuned. You know, it could be you can give and take here or there and everywhere. But if you think about it, um, there is quite a bit of fine tuning going on. So much so that life would be impossible when you put everything together and you see the whole picture. You can say you step back a little bit and say, "Hey, wait a minute. What's going on here?" Just to give you an idea, let me just read a little paragraph that I wrote. It's should be in the description, I think. It says if we didn't have, and the more they're discovering, or the more they find out, they say, "Wait a minute, this solar system is very, very unique." But let me go ahead and read it before I interrupt myself again. If we didn't have our sun, our moon, our gas giants, our Earth, our magnetic field, our location in the solar system, our solar system, we would not exist. Then there are our 17 essential common elements and associated molecules programmed inside of us to make all of our essential working parts and mechanisms, including trillions of batteries, pumps, spinning electric motors, manuf- manufacturing energy molecules inside of us, not to mention the same amount of beneficial common elements and matter, such as silicon, that's balanced with the right amount of water on Earth. Okay, so the more they're studying, you know, looking for other solar systems, other possible locations for life, the more they're finding out how unique the Earth is in our solar system and how inhospitable other planets are, even in the Goldilocks zones, and how inhospitable other solar systems are. Other suns are unstable, flaring, you know, dangerous, damaging plasma and everything. So then there's I think every other solar system has a dual star system. And then, of course, well, the more they find out, the more they study, the more they learn how unique this Earth is, and everything has to be just right. And myself, as a mechanic, I never, ever, ever in my life saw or imagined how a working part could make itself. I mean, this alone is a fine tuning problem. You have to have the working part in place and working in order to even store the information. And so, how can you have the information write itself and then make all the directed working parts and mechanisms required, the proteins that are required, from 44 amino acid to tens of thousands of amino acids? They have to be in the right sequence, you know, and they have to be folded correctly as well. So there really is a fine tuning problem, and you have to step back and look at the whole picture. You know, each thing by itself is a problem, or in our case, is a solution, which would indicate design or intent and purpose. Not to mention the fact that the Earth that we're living on was already destroyed once or twice, and we could just wonder at what the world used to be like before it was destroyed by the global flood. And I mean totally destroyed, with all the life in the earth being destroyed. Then the only thing left would be the whatever was on the ark and whatever survived outside the global flood, which would be the insects and some of the fish and the water animals, or marine life. Some of it, not all of it. Of course, some of the insects, not all of them. And if you notice, there is a wide range of biodiversity in the insect, you know, the insect kind of life. And, the ones that have 4 legs and 2 arms, those insects. Not to mention the arthropods and all the different other kinds of creeping things, 100 legs, centipede legs, centipedes and stuff. But there is, if you notice, there seems to be a greater diversity among the insects than there is the land animals, because they survived the global flood, which might be another rabbit hole. But just step back and look at everything in place, and then you have to start to wonder, because you're talking about 17 essential common elements that are not even working part. Well, they're the basis of the working parts, and they have to be, functional too. But the 17, not just 2 or 3 or 4, 17 of the most common elements are absolutely essential to life, without which there would be no life. 17 basic working parts. Like I said, I never saw a working part that made itself to begin with. And then these 17 elements make up the molecules and the amino acids and the proteins that make all the directed working mechanisms inside of us, which of course have to be directed. The working parts themselves have to be directed to be made. They're actually ordered. Proteins are formed, then the proteins are sent to where they have to go. All kinds of signaling mechanisms to have everything where it needs to be in order for life to exist, which is the reason why they can't duplicate it. Because you have all this signaling mechanisms, which they don't even know where all the signaling is coming from to begin with. I mean, we do know about the DNA and RNA, but there's more signaling, there's more information than that, because it has to be, it can't just be any information in any zygote. It's got to be the right zygote with the compatible information. In other words, it's got to be the same zygote that's made by that information. It can't be different, otherwise it doesn't work. And so then even the balance of the silicon and the water on the earth has to be just right. And the fact that it was a beautiful creation before it was destroyed, and it's still livable, and life is still viable after thousands of years of radiation and abuse and all kinds of stuff, which also shows, forethought. It's like they were talking the other night. You have to have a destination. You have to have a place where it comes from, and a place and a destination where it goes to. And then there's even codes, passwords, and codes for things to get where they're going. And then there's carrier mechanisms that go back and forth, and it happens at a mind-boggling rate. I mean, this stuff happens, very, very fast. The same with the ATP synthase. It's making ATP at a very, very fast rate too. Shalom, Jesus is Lord. How are you doing? God bless. God bless. So yeah, there is fine tuning, not just in the atom or in the quarks and the expansion and the rate of expansion and all that, if that's the way it even happened, but in everything else, there's fine tuning. Like, I'll just read it again. If we didn't have our sun, our moon, our gas giants, our Earth, our magnetic field, our location in the solar system, in our solar system, we would not exist. Then there are our 17 essential common elements and associated molecules programmed inside of us to make all of our essential directed working parts and mechanisms, including trillions of batteries, pumps, spinning electric motors, manufacturing energy molecules inside of us, not to mention the same amount of beneficial common elements as the 17 essential common elements. In other words, they're not harmful, they're beneficial. And matter such as silicon, without which there wouldn't be the earth that we stand on, balanced with the right amount of water. So we got all of this fine tuning, and the more they learn, the more they find out that the other solar systems aren't like that. The other suns aren't like that. Then you have to stop and think, hey, wait a minute, something's going on here. And, if you didn't already see how fearfully and wonderfully we're already made. But, yeah, I was watching the debate on Tangelo's debate because he speaks Portuguese, and I didn't even know he was there. I mean, had a debate. So I watched it, and he basically obliterated the arguments of the Leo guy. And the Leo guy tried to act like he knew more, but he wasn't able to answer any of the fine-tuning argument. Didn't even know that there was a fine-tuning argument being made, even after it was made, because he said, "Oh, you're assuming the fine-tuning argument." No, he just showed you what the fine-tuning argument is, and you didn't understand it. So there's that too. Anyway, if nobody wants to join, I think I'll just go ahead and finish right here, because that's about as much as I have to say on it. And I guess there's no atheist today to argue. So I guess that's that. But yeah, just step back and look at everything, and you'll see the hand of God.